My attitude was just like, I always looked it out. I had to think about this apart. It was just like my parents, just, this was not what we did. So I always am like, what did actually happen? Like, I don't know these stories that, are depicted.
That are all
Yeah, right, exactly. Why is there always a guy with the funny,
We're going to make this work. Such a wonderful space, and thank you all for coming out. I'm looking forward to hearing all of these wonderful poets read as well. And I thought today, to shake things up a bit, I was going to read poems that only dealt with women, or were from the women's perspective, because my last book, Sonata Melodica, had so few women in it, and I felt impoverished in a certain way. And I'd like to start by reading a few poems out of a book that I rarely get a chance to read from. Mother Love, which is a sequence of poems, or cycle of poems, based on Persephone and Demeter, the classic mother-daughter story. And it alternates between, well, it doesn't even alternate, it just moves around between the daughter being abducted into the underworld from her point of view, the mother from her point of view, and so I'll give you a few of those. The Narcissus Flower. I remember my foot in its frivolous slipper, a frightened bird, not the earth unzipped, but the way I could see my own fingers and hear myself scream as the blossom incinerated. And though nothing could chasten the plunge, this man adamant as a knife easing into the humblest crevice, I found myself at the center of a calm so pure it was hate. The mystery is, you can eat fear before fear eats you. You can live beyond dying and become a queen whom nothing surprises. I began to imagine what would be a modern equivalent of this hell, and I thought that for a mother to know that your daughter had hooked up with a mediocre artist would be about the key word is mediocre. The bistro sticks. She was thinner, with a mannered gauntness as she paused just inside the double glass doors to survey the room, silvery cape billowing dramatically behind her. What's this? I thought, lifting a hand until she nodded and started across the parquet. That's when I saw she was dressed all in gray, from a kittenish cashmere skirt and cowl down to the graphite signature of her shoes. Sorry I'm late, she panted, though she wasn't, sliding into the chair, her cape tossed off in a shudder of brushed steel. We kissed. Then I leaned back to peruse my blighted child, this wary aristocrat mole. How's business? I asked, and hazarded a motherly smile to keep from crying out, are you content to conduct your life as a cliche? And what's worse, an anachronism, the brooding artist's demi-monde. Near the Rue Princesse, they had opened a gallery cum souvenir shop which featured fuzzy, off-color Monets next to his acrylics, no doubt, plus bearded African drums and the occasional miniature gargoyle from Notre Dame, the great artist had carved at breakfast with a pocket knife. Tourists love us. The Parisians, of course, she blushed, are amused, though not without a certain admiration. The Chateaubriand arrived on a bone-white plate, smug and absolute in its fragrant crust, a black plug steaming like the heart plucked from the chest of a worthy enemy. One touch with her fork sent pink juices streaming. Admiration for what? Wine, a bloody Pinot Noir, brought color to her cheeks. Why, the aplomb with which we've managed to support our art, meaning he'd convinced her to pose nude for his appalling canvases, faintly futuristic landscapes strewn with car wrecks and bodies being chewed by rabid cocker spaniels. I'd like to come by the studio, I ventured, and see the new stuff. Yes, if you wish. A delicate rebuff before the warning. He dresses all in black now. Me, he drapes in blues and carmine. And even though I think it's kind of cute, in company I tend toward more muted shades. She paused and had the grace to drop her eyes. She did look ravishing, spookily insubstantial, a lipstick ghost on tissue, or as if one had stood on a fifth-floor terrace peering through a fringe of rain at Paris's dreaming chimney pots, each sooty issue wobbling skyward in an ecstatic, oracular spiral. And he never thinks of food. I wish I didn't have to plead with him to eat. Fruit and cheese appeared, arrayed on leaf green dishes. I stuck with café crème. This camembert is so ripe, she joked, it's practically grown hair. Mugging a golden glob complete with parsley sprig onto a heel of bread. Nothing seemed to fill her up. She swallowed, sliced into a pear, speared each tear-shaped lavalier, and popped the dripping mess into her pretty mouth. Nowhere the bright tufted fields, weighted vines, and sun poured down out of the south. But are you happy? Fearing, I whispered it quickly. What? You know, Mother, she bit into the starry rose of a fig. One really should try the fruit here. I've lost her, I thought, and called for the bill. Well, as you know, Demeter was one of the only gods in the Greek pantheon who could defy Zeus, and because she was Mother Earth, and she just simply said, unless my child is returned from the underworld world, I'm not doing anything. And they struck a compromise, which was not Zeus's way usually. Demeter waiting. No. Who can bear it? Only someone who hates herself, who believes to pull a hand back from a daughter's cheek is to put love into her pocket, like one of those ashen Christian philosophers or a war-bound soldier. She is gone again, and I will not bear it. I will drag my grief through a winter of my own making and refuse any meadow that recycles itself into hope. Shit on the cicadas, dry meteor flash, finicky butterflies. I will wail and thrash until the whole goddamn golden panorama freezes over. Then I will sit down to wait for her. Yes. And one more from this, and then I'll close with a couple of other ones. This is from the daughter's point of view. Missing. I am the daughter who went out with the girls. Never checked back in, and nothing marked my last known whereabouts. Not a single glistening petal. Horror is partial. It keeps you going. A lost child is a fact hardening around its absence, a knot in the breast purring, touch, and I will come true. I was returned. I watched her watch as I babbled, it could have been worse. Who can tell what penetrates? Pity is the brutal discipline. Now I understand. She can never die, just as nothing can bring me back. I am the one who comes and goes. I am the footfall that hovers. This is a ghost story, kind of in honor of Edgar Allan Poe. I teach at the University of Virginia. Between Jefferson and Poe, you have these two poles. It's kind of interesting. But this is a ghost story that happened actually in France. My husband and I were at a writer's retreat, and they warned us that the lady of the house who'd given it sometimes came back, that it was haunted, so don't worry. Ghost Walk, Chateau de Lavigny, August 1996. The neighbors who never set foot in the castle, never tasted the truffles or Chateau Rosé, say she walks room to room all night turning the lights on. And by day a cold wind blows through the tiered gardens, pinching leaves from the withering rose. It is said in the village she died of pure heartbreak. Not a love turned away, but a love lasting only as long as a lifetime. His life, and no longer. Not enough for the lady, hair red as a brush fire that refused to go out, though it faded with years to the orange of the coral that lives in the sea. And still, she was lovely. Pale beauty became her like pearls, or music box, like Café mit Schlag. Slim in an era when slim wasn't in fashion. She climbed into her tub, lined with bath salts and mirrors, chin deep in scent. She would dream of a body that could hold all of her, keep her afloat on this ocean of good sense and breeding. She told no one, not even the one man she lived for. She put on her lipstick. She combed her brave hair, which she bore like a lantern, into the murmuring parlor, where they waited with smiles and champagne on their lips. All night, the waves pitching, all day the crows wheeling through skies blue as his eyes, bright above the stunned lake. When he died, she laid down in their bed of silk tassels, in their bed of fringed curtains and rose-colored satin. She lay down without tears in that blushing cradle and slept in that rocking, that cargo of sighs. Each night the bed creaking cast onto the waves. Each dawn, roses flaunting their loose tongues of flame. She's a kind spirit, they assure us, down in the village. Poor souls left behind when the party was over, searching the rooms for his laughter and a last glass of wine. And I'll end with one of the few poems that deals with a woman in my last book, Sonata Melodica, which takes place during the time of Beethoven. So it's very male. And this woman is the countess that Beethoven wrote for Elise, and one of his immortal beloveds. He was constantly falling in love with people who didn't know, who were inappropriate. The Countess shares confidences over Carnival chocolate. He was a stormy pedagogue, always interrupting the prettiest airs, or even his own compositions, which I was given to understand he did not permit everyone to play. I pounced upon each chord with the ignorant ardor of youth. I was 16 after all, and he was already famous in Vienna, where such approbations are stingily accorded. He insisted on a light touch. He himself was a wild man, ripping the music from my stumbling fingers and stomping about as the pages fluttered sadly earthwards, like the poor pheasants dropped over the hunting fields of the Prater. Rest assured, I soon learned to play more lightly. He was pleased then, and a quick, soft smile would crimp that dismal chunk of a face, a sight just slightly less repugnant than his rages. He was exceedingly unlovely, yes, but with a threadbare elegance, much as a servant, envisioning gentility, might avail himself of the scraps and dashes from the milliner's basket. Sometimes I could coax him to the pianoforte, where he would bow his head, eyes closed, and wait, as if the silence spoke only to him, before playing without notes, music of such inexpressible beauty, I thought to breathe and disturb the air would break his heart. He would not consent to payment, but accepted the linens I had sent up to his rooms. Poor man, he thought I had sewn them myself.